Welcome back to Adbacks. My name is Greg Bell,
Jason Brooks.
and we're here to talk everything business, business acquisition, business sales, anything to do with your business in our world.
Business brokers.
Business brokers. So we had someone suggest a topic, and the topic today are CRMs.
CRMs?
CRMs, CIM,
CIMs,
CVR, there's all kinds of names for them.
Memorandums, offerings. I mean, yeah. It gets confusing depending on who you talk to.
Yeah, the verbiage on it is fairly varied.
Yeah, most people say CIM.
Most people say SIMs.
We say CBR just because of what we, like who we're affiliated with.
Mm-hmm.
But offering memorandum, it's all the same thing at the end of the day.
And for those of you that don't know, the SIM, CBR, whatever you want to call it, is usually the first piece of documentation that you get on a business that you're interested in. Has lots of different sections to it, and we were going to kind of go through those and what they asked. What was the actual question?
Just like the best practices and things like that. I mean, it is an important document, and what I think a lot of people, especially sellers, don't understand is when you're selling a business, the first thing a buyer's looking at once they sign an NDA is going to be, excuse me, the SIM, right? And it's probably one of the most important documents that you can present to a potential buyer because they're looking at more than one business. So that document needs to explain to them why your business is more desirable than the other ones they're looking at. Mm-hmm. And so it's imperative to have a good SIM or CBR. We'll just say SIM.
And I think it's even more important when you're selling a business that's, let's say, priced under $1 million.
Correct. Yeah, correct.
The higher you get,
it's
not quite as important, but
I've noticed the SIM gets skinnier the higher the value. Mm-hmm. When you start talking about businesses under 3 million, especially under $1 million, like the more information you can have inside of your SIM, the better it's going to be for everybody involved.
Yeah, especially when you're working with buyers, and let's say, like you talked about, working on a business that's priced under $1 million. A lot of times those buyers aren't going to be quite as sophisticated as, for instance, a PEG group or somebody who's looking at a business that's $5 million.
And the PEG groups appreciate a really good SIM.
They do.
It doesn't matter for them how it looks as far as how much information's in there. Like, it does help. It always will help them. But I think it's very more, like you were saying, it's a lot more desirable for those people that aren't as sophisticated at buying bigger businesses and are looking at buying, in the small market, under $1 million. Mm-hmm. So it's very important.
And I think, especially for those businesses under $1 million, how you explain things is critical in your SIM to make sure that they understand what you're trying to convey to them. And it's not confusing, or it doesn't lead them down a path that you don't want them going down.
Yeah, and we haven't even given it a definition yet. So a SIM is essentially, it's a book, and it's marketing material. Yeah, right. It's using all of the information that you're able to provide to your broker, or if you do it yourself, which that's tough, but it's all the information that a broker is going to need in order to prepare a buyer for being interested in your business. So, I mean, there's a lot of things in it. Like, my SIMs are usually very detailed, as well as mine looks like marketing material. So it's all fancied up, and it's got some great little graphics and things. And, some people say that doesn't matter. Some people say it does. Really, I do it that way simply because I don't like looking at just plain white background and just all text. I want a little bit more substance. I need it to pop a little bit because I need it to hold attention, not just from the reading material. And don't get me wrong, the reading material, at the end of the day, it's all boring things, right? Yes. For the most part, because you're outlining who owns the business, who the business is, where they're located, how is the business, what are the operations of the business, what does the business do, how is the business ran, who works in the business,
key employees,
historical financials, how the business performed, what sets the business apart from others, what are some of the things that they could grow on if with new ownership that the current ownership's not doing. There's a lot of things in it, and it's the most important piece of selling your business once an NDA is signed, because you can get offers on a good CIM before the buyer ever talks to you.
Yes. And a lot of times, the more complete your CIM is and the more questions that it addresses, the less you're going to have to answer later on. A lot of times, the less issues you will have if you do go under contract.
Well, 100%. Yeah. Like the questionnaire, like as brokers, we send out seller questionnaires to help us build CIMs, and how I establish that with my seller once I've got them on board with letting me be the broker is I'm going to send you homework. It is, and my seller questionnaire is different depending on the business. It's different depending on the size, the scope, and the scale of the business. Obviously, I learn a little bit or as much as I can before I send this out. So when I do send the seller questionnaire, it pertains to that business as much as possible. And obviously, it's going to have boilerplate template stuff in there as well that everybody should be asking anyway. But it can be, my questionnaire can be anywhere from 5 pages to 20 pages. And like, it's imperative, and I tell my sellers all the time, it is imperative that you spend as much possible time and really think about what you're putting on this. As much as you can give me, I want all of it. I'm not saying I'm going to use it to put it in the CIM, but the more detail you can give me to help me build the CIM, the better the CIM's going to be.
Yeah.
The easier it's going to be to get buyers convinced that it's worth buying.
And the less surprises you'll have later on down the line.
Oh my God, yes. Yeah, you'd be amazed if things are missing in a CIM, how they'll come up in due diligence.
Yeah.
Or or not even due diligence. Like some buyers will immediately start asking questions before they make offers. Correct. And then you're getting into buyer seller calls, right? And then now the buyer's asking questions of the seller that you're in your head on that call or in that meeting going, I should have asked those questions first and gotten those answers. And then you might not look like a fool, but you're going to feel like one. Yeah. In a sense. It's very important. And it is a key thing. Your financials, your tax returns, your P&Ls, all those things are very important documents that a buyer wants to see. But really, the first thing you want to know is, what is this business? How is it operating? Who's operating it? Is it reliant on the owner? Is it not reliant on the owner? Are there the key employees? They want to know the ins and outs of the business before they'll even entertain anything else.
And they also want to know, are there any issues? Or is there any
100%.
hair with this business that we want to get out in the open right up front?
Correct.
So we're not running into those issues later on and trying to work through them. It's right out there, right out front, out in the open. So they can make that decision.
If you're a seller deciding to sell your business, you need to understand the most important thing is be honest up front. If you have skeletons in your closet, do not hide the skeletons. No. Because the last thing you want to do is to omit skeletons up front, get into due diligence, let a buyer uncover the skeletons, and then you lose the deal. And 99% of the time you will lose the deal because they spent all this time learning about your business, you not saying anything about the issues or the skeletons you have with the business. They're now spending thousands upon thousands of dollars, because a lot of these guys will buy due diligence teams, quality of earnings teams. Yep. They'll spend thousands of dollars and find out that there's a skeleton in the closet that actually hurts the value of the business, or hurts the profit, or hurts some aspect of the business that affects actual financial numbers. Or there's a lawsuit, you didn't say anything.
And I was about to say, or there's worst case scenario, they don't find out about it until after the deal is closed, and all of a sudden you're being served papers and you're ending up in a courtroom, which is the last place a business owner wants to end.
Reps and warranties falls into place, and that's a bigger issue that is, we could talk about another time. I don't think it's as big of an issue as it should, as people make it out to be, because if you do it right, that is just a clause inside of a contract that you don't have to worry about.
Correct. And if you're doing everything like we talked about the correct way up front, you don't have to worry about running into those issues.
Expose the skeletons, really. Like, expose it. Once you get a buyer that signed an NDA, has reviewed your CIM, has reviewed the financials, has a genuine interest in learning more, like be ready to expose your downfalls, your pitfalls of the business. That's
Yep.
very important. And I've had sellers that will say, do we need to say that?
Yeah.
Do I need to tell them this? Do I
Yeah.
need to tell the buyer this? And I will say yes. One is if you think it's a bad thing, it may not always be that. A lot of times when I talk to my sellers, they'll say, well, this is going on, or this happened, or I don't do that. And I'll go, that's great. Talk about that. Like, fall on the sword, because a lot of times what I think a seller feels is an issue, like a skeleton, is actually an opportunity.
Correct.
And as a buyer, we want to know opportunities. Like, no, tell me that's that, because that is an opportunity for when I take that business over. I can use that. I can take advantage of that opportunity, and that helps my business grow. People are not buying your business to just let it sit
Correct.
the way it is. They're buying your business because they're hopeful that they can buy it and turn it into something that it wasn't previously, something better, or making more money. So any opportunity that you feel is a pitfall, talk about it.
Yeah.
Very
Get
important.
it out in the open.
And it's very important to have it in the CIM.
Yeah.
It is very important to have it in the CIM. And it's very important to understand what is in the CIM. Like I send a copy of the CIM to all of my sellers before the listing goes live. I want you to read it. I want you to make sure everything looks good. I'm not missing anything. I'm not adding something that shouldn't be there, as far as I'm not putting words in your mouth. Because as a brokers, we're very reliant on the seller's information, because we can get in trouble if we put too much, or we put something that's not true in there just to make the listing sizzle or entice a buyer.
And that's one thing also that sometimes I have to talk to buyer or sellers about too. I'm not really here, quote unquote, selling your business. I'm not going to do things that are not. There are some brokers out there that can put a lot of sunshine on a listing, put a lot of sunshine on a business. And I tell my sellers that, listen, I'm not a salesman. I'm not here to sell someone your business. I'm here to make sure that they have all the information that they need to make a good decision about whether they want to buy your business or not. I'm not here to try to convince necessarily.
Your business
talk
sells
someone
itself.
Into it.
Right?
We're not here to talk someone into buying your business. We're here to say, this is a good business. These are the
This is
reasons
why.
why it's a good business. Is it a good fit for you? And that's it.
Yeah. I mean, that's exactly what it is. I mean, the other part is confidentiality, right? So confidentiality is a very major factor for a lot of business owners that are trying to sell. You don't want your employees to find out. You don't want your vendors, your suppliers to find out.
You don't want
right?
your competition to find out. I've got a
competition to
listing
find
right now. That was one of his biggest concerns, was making sure that this one particular competitor did not find out that his business was for sale. And that was imperative to him.
And there's ways to gatekeep to keep that prevention,
Yes.
From happening. But it's very imperative that the confidentiality of a listing is there. Now, if you're a seller that doesn't care, fine.
Yeah.
We'll put information and that you don't necessarily put out right away. And what I'm talking about when it comes to confidentiality is, prior to a buyer seeing a CIM, they have to sign an NDA, right? Yeah. But they're also going to see the listing that's published live. Our listing should never have who you are, where you are, the name of the business, the name of the owner.
Correct.
That is for the CIM to explain. The CIM is what will expose all that information. The listing is simply just to get somebody interested enough to click and say, I'd like to learn about this business. I'm willing to sign an NDA. So our jobs as brokers, again, 90% of the time, the seller does want that confidentiality, is to make sure that the listing that we put up has the confidentiality structured within, so people aren't going to figure out who you are.
Yeah, and for instance, like when I have listings like I was just talking about, I'll even put an extra gate there that even though they've signed the NDA, they still don't have access to the CIM, because I want to actually speak to that person who's interested in, to make sure that they're not associated with or representing anybody that they don't want to know the business is for sale, because that can happen sometimes. So when I've got owners who are really particular about, a competitor or someone not knowing they're for sale, then I want to have that extra gate of, okay, you've signed the NDA, that's great. I got to have a conversation with you before I still release anything to you.
Yeah. One thing I do is I'll ask them, is there anybody you don't want to share any of the information? If they come in through whatever portal we use and show interest, want to sign an NDA, let me know their names, what company they are. Like I can pull emails sometimes and find their emails. So if I ever see that email, it'll trigger and I'll know not to let them sign an NDA. I'll know to just reply back to that person. I do apologize, but this listing is no longer available. That's just an easy way to get through it. So confidentiality is a big part of the CIM pre-exposure. Like it is very important that you have a broker that understands how important it is to be confidential. Do people find out? Yes. Everything that we do to provide that confidentiality, do people still find out? Yes. Somebody might, here's the thing. You might have a competitor you don't want to see, but another guy that knows them will sign an NDA and then go, oh my God, now they're calling that person. Hey, Joe, you see that one of your competitors is up for sale. I signed an NDA, blah, blah, blah. That does happen, right? Yeah. That does happen. Now, if you're that guy that signs the NDA and then wants to call that competitor because you're friends with that owner, you can get in trouble, right? Because now you're
up for lawsuit.
You just signed an NDA and you're actually going outside of the bounds of the NDA you signed.
Yes.
But can you track all that? It's hard, right?
It's hard.
For the most part, I think I've only had one time when somebody figured it out. Yeah. And it wasn't because of anything I did. It was because the buyer went to a bank to open up a bank account. This is a tight-knit community area. This is a big restaurant, and went to bank to open up a business account because he's getting ready to buy this business. And he blurted out that he was buying this restaurant to the teller. Now, banks have confidentiality guidelines. Like I worked at a bank. No matter what a client says, even if they're out your teller window, you cannot go around and telling everybody what that person is saying. Like you are bound by confidentiality. So that personal banker that he went and opened the account with went to have lunch at that restaurant and then started blurting around to the staff about, I know the guy that's buying this place. And then I got a heated phone call from the seller and I said, whoa. Yeah, I've done nothing. I know that. Like, give me the name of this person. And she's like, I don't know. He sat at the bar and he paid. And I said, well, how'd he pay? Well, he paid by credit card. And I said, okay, cool. You got a credit card slip. Give me the name on that credit card slip. She goes, oh my God, I didn't think about that. So I looked at the name. Wasn't in my database of anybody that ever showed an interest in it. So I'm like, this is not me. This didn't come from me. This exposure didn't come from me. Where does it come from? I called the buyer. Hey, do you know a so-and-so? And he goes, yeah, that's a personal banker. I just talked to him like 2 days ago when I opened up the bank account that I'm going to use for this business. And I went, he was just in the restaurant, blurting out that the staff, hey, this place is getting sold. My guy's actually buying it. My buyer got
I'm sure he went through the roof.
He went through the roof. He marched into that bank that day. The personal banker was off, but he chastised the manager of the bank hard. Guess who didn't have a job the next day? Personal banker lost his job. Yeah. So people do get their comeuppance when they screw around with these things. And it is very important to keep confidentiality. But do people find out? That's just one example. But that wasn't because of the broker.
And that was also a random situation.
It's a random situation. Yeah. I've never had it happen.
No,
I've never had it happen. That I sold that was 4 years ago and has never happened since. So, you can never say never. I don't ever say that. But,
correct.
That's
but just very rarely does it happen when it's done the right way. Now, if someone doesn't do it the right way, it can happen.
If your broker
when you do it
can't
the right
explain
way, it has to be a one-off situation like that happens.
If your broker can't explain the importance of confidentiality, don't hire that broker.
No.
Because our bread and butter is that.
Yeah. That's one of the main reasons why you hire a broker. Because I will say this too. If you're looking at businesses to sell or so on and so forth, I'm sure you're familiar with Biz Buy Sell. I do see owners advertise their business on Biz Buy Sell.
Correct.
And they just, here's the name of my business, here's where it's located, here's everything.
Yep. And
which I'm very surprised that they do that.
The reason why you hire, and again, you don't have to hire a broker, but the reason why the broker matters is because of the confidentiality, the Biz Buy Sell confidentiality. The other thing is you aren't, as a seller, ever going to think about having everybody sign an NDA that comes to you that wants to look at your business. And the problem is because you don't think about that and you're not asking people to sign NDAs and you're the one that's, I'm going to sell it by myself, it's going to be for sale by owner. Guess what? They're not bound by any signed agreement that keeps them from going and telling everybody under the sun. And if what happens? You piss off a potential buyer because you don't like what they said. They poo-poo on your business. And I understand we're all driven by egos with our business. So if somebody insults your business and your ego's too inflated, what are you going to do? You might piss that buyer off. What does a pissed off buyer do?
Tell everybody.
Try to hurt the business.
Possible business,
So
vendors. Yeah.
The broker matters because we have those protected NDAs. I get it. Obviously, as a seller, you can do your own NDAs, right? But are you, if you're going to speak to 30 people that are going to take you away from your business, to working your business just so you can talk about selling it, you're going to make them all sign an NDA?
Correct.
Right? And also you're hurting your business because why? You're spending more time dealing with trying to sell it than you are keeping the business going, making sure that nothing gets screwed up, the ship's still sailing, the broker's going to take care of it.
And you really don't understand how much time that takes.
Yeah, you don't want to hurt your business because you're trying to sell it yourself and take all your time away from the focus of keeping it. Because if the business starts to suffer, and valuations are based off previous years, but if they see that right now it's starting to suffer and they realize it's because you're spending all this time trying to sell it, they're going to walk away.
Or you're not going to get what you want.
You're not going to get what you want. So confidentiality is very key. Hiring the right person to do it or doing it the right way yourself really is the easy way of saying it. And then there's there's three things that sellers will always ask us to hey, I want you to include this. And it's like, okay, let me hear it. Understanding the owner's role. Like if you personally hold every account, you do everything, it's a risk.
Yes.
Right? If you do everything for the business to run the business, you can still sell it, but you're going to be docked value.
Yes.
You're going to be docked value. There's going to be a hit on the multiple, right? Because buyers are wanting, it depends, right? You can find the guy that's just going to come in, plug and play. He's going to replace you and just continue to do those things. But what I've noticed in the last, 6 months to a year, is a lot of the buyers are looking for more of a manager role.
Yes.
To be there, to take or assume your role, so they can sit back, take that 20,000 foot view and figure out, okay, how can I turn this business from what he was doing into the next level?
A lot of buyers, like you said, over the last couple of years have switched their focus to buying a business that I can work in to buying a business I can work on. So it's become much more investor focused versus this is going to be my job and I'm going to run this business.
Yeah.
They're like you said, well, is there a manager in place? Is there a GM in place? Is there some key employee in place that can run dailies for me and I can work on the business, improving efficiencies, working on the marketing, so on and so forth.
And in the CIM, we have to put that. We have got to put your role in there.
Mm-hmm.
One of the most important things that a buyer is looking at is what is the owner's role?
Yeah.
And that is one of the first pages is owner's relationship to the business, right?
Yep.
Because a buyer wants to know, like you had said, am I buying a business or am I buying a job?
Correct.
If I'm buying a job, this isn't for me. Now, are there buyers out there that are looking to buy jobs? Yes.
And there's also a caveat of buyers that they're looking to buy one that's a job now, but they know how to grow that and transition it into a manager-led business instead of an owner-led business.
And one thing that I always have this heart-to-heart conversation with potential sellers that I'm talking to once I've done the evaluation and I start talking to them about everything, like if they're buying a job with no aspirations of transitioning themselves out of that role and just continue to do what you're doing, your multiple's affected.
Yes.
Right? So I had somebody the other day, and this is just a generalized statement. He said, what is the difference in multiple between an absentee ownership or somebody that's buying into a job? Right? What is the difference in multiple? And it's hard to put a generalization on that, but for the most part, and I said, listen, I'm generalizing it, but if I was to just kind of hit you with something, I would say it's at least half a point.
Yeah,
It's
I would say
if
half
it's-
to a full
yeah,
point.
it's if you're a 3 multiple, but somebody's buying a job because they have to replace you, your 3 multiples at least a 2.5, possibly less.
yes.
depending on the business,
And depending
right?
on
And how
okay.
much
Yeah.
you're there.
For example, I'm working with a buyer right now. We looked at a business, good business, but 95% of the sales come through the owner.
Correct.
That's a real risk,
Yeah.
and they're asking a multiple more like the owner does.
Semi-absentee or
Yeah,
semi
or is doing
half the load.
15% of the sales or 20% of the sales. And
Yeah.
you're not going to
And-
be able to get that 3 multiple or that high 2s multiple if you as the owner are the business.
Yeah, and it's not that we're telling you can't sell it.
No.
What I will tell you is if I realize that's what's going on, and you're the brain of the operation, guess what I'm going to tell you? That's great and all. I could still sell it. One, we're going to have to reduce price. I cannot offer a 3 multiple on something
Correct.
when you're doing that much work. Two, expect a longer transition period.
Yes.
You're going to have to stick around longer because they have to download your brain basically.
And
you
you
fill
have
your
to
roles.
transfer all those relationships
Yeah.
to the new owner, which
Yeah.
is the most difficult part, and
Yeah.
it takes the most time.
So, understanding owner's role is one of the key pieces inside of a sim. We have to put it in there. We have to be very honest about your role. Don't hide from your broker that you do more than you do less than what you actually do. It's the worst thing you can do because when they find out if an offer is made and you go under contract and you get in due diligence, they find out you're doing more, they will cut bait. They won't even question you anymore. They'll just say, I'm terminating this.
And the same goes for if you're an owner, put your ego in the closet.
Please.
And don't, if you aren't that involved, don't talk up how important you are to the business.
Exactly.
It's just shooting yourself in the
just-
foot. No, the better way is to say, listen, I do this during the day, I do that during the day, I kind of oversee things, and that's about it.
Could I take on more? Probably, but I don't.
But I don't,
I don't
and,
need
the,
to.
and the business
Right?
runs and grows without me doing that.
Perfect.
That's what a buyer wants
Perfect.
to hear, because
Yeah.
then the buyer can say, okay,
Yeah.
let's say even you are that person. I can still replace you with a GM and have everything still run like that, and I don't have to be involved 8 to 5 every day.
Yep. Yeah. The other thing that's important as far as what sellers ask you to put in that we won't or not put in that we will is customer concentration, right?
Yeah.
Like, a lot of times buyers will ask, can I see the top 5 customers, right? They want to see the percentage of how much of your revenue is coming from these top 5 customers. Because typically if it's 15 to 20% of the revenue is one customer, you're going to get docked on a multiple, right? It's going to be harder for them to say yes because that's a key piece. I mean, think about it this way. If you're doing $1 million in net profit and 20% of that came from one guy and that guy decides he doesn't want to be your customer anymore, your profit's not $1 million anymore. It's 800,000. You've lost 200,000 in profit like that you can't get back, right? Unless you replace it. So it's very important that you understand where your concentration is at. Who are your top customers? I feel like I have to put that in there. If it's less than 20%, honestly, if it's less than 20%, I think it's not too big of a deal. If it's less than 15%, that's fine. Perfect.
Yeah.
Perfect. 10%, who cares? Like, that's fine. 10% is not going to kill me. I can get that back.
And some industries are going to be a little bit different too. For instance, like when you start getting into construction and things like that, a lot of times the construction firm may only have 4 or 5 clients, period. So their concentrations are going to be a little bit different than somebody else.
Yeah. The other thing that they also will say is like, oh yeah, put in that they can grow it over to Tampa and we're here in Naples, right?
Yes.
Like, that's great and all. And you have that ability, but you haven't done it. So why am I going to tell the buyer, hey, you can grow into Tampa, right? I can have that conversation with the buyer, but I don't have to put that in the sim. And I can say you could easily grow in Tampa if you did these things. That's a conversation piece. That's not hey, here's opportunities. That's not an opportunity really, right? Because
that's why I ask usually a general kind of more open-ended question of which a lot of buyers will ask. Well, if you were going to own this business for another 5 years, what would you do? What would be your plans? How would you grow it?
Yeah.
And that's usually a common question. So I'll include
and
that
that's
in a sim
all
as
stuff
well.
in the sim that you put in, right? Like, but if they say, I can expand to Tampa, okay, how long would that take you?
Correct.
Like I said in 1 to 5 years. Expanding to Tampa, is that in 1 year? Would you do that in 1 year? Would you do that in 5? Well, it would probably take me 3 years. I'm not putting that in the sim. Why? A buyer that buys your business, if I acquire a business, the first 6 months to a year, I'm learning the business.
Correct. You're not changing anything.
I'm not trying to change much. I'm not trying to grow much. Now, again, there's caveats to that. There's outliers that will immediately be able to hit guns blazing, and peg groups can do it. But your individual buyer, your smaller buyer that's investing into an acquisition, I would say under 2 million, typically under $1 million, they're really just trying to acclimate themselves to the business right away.
And I would also make this suggestion to you buyers out there. Unless you are buying a business with which you are intimately familiar with that industry or that business, don't change almost anything the first year.
Oh, 100%.
Don't
100%.
say, oh, well, I'm going to change this and I'm going to do that and I'm going to do this. It's not going to work out well for you. And I have had deals that have been under contract and the buyer started talking about all the changes they were going to make to the business. And frankly, it scared the seller off to the point that they said, I don't want to sell the business to him anymore. And a deal has been lost because of that. So yes, you can share some of your plans, but don't make them out like you're going to implement these in the first 3 months of the business. It's going to scare the seller and it's going to scare them as, for instance, on mine, it was the buyer was wanting to basically fundamentally change the business and their customer base. And my seller was like,
the business made successful.
Exactly. And my seller was basically like,
why?
That's not the business I built, and that's not the business I want to sell. So I don't want to sell it to that buyer anymore.
And we get that a lot.
The deal blew up.
We get that a lot. Like I've had buyers that are like, "Oh, I'm going to do this," and they'll make stupid offers because of their plan moving forward. If they acquire the business, that has nothing to do with how the business operates. And I literally have to have a conversation with one. The guy made an offer of no money down. I want to do a 6-year seller note. And I said, how much are you going to put down? Well, nothing. And I'm like, okay. And he goes, so I'm going to pay them X amount of dollars every year. I said, okay, so what are you putting down? I'm not going to put anything. After a year, they'll get their first payment. And then the next year, they get their first payment. I'm like, you think anybody would ever take that?
Yeah, what's the advantage
why
to
would
the seller?
Why would I sell?
Exactly.
Like you're formulating this to a business broker who immediately in my head is going, there's no chance he says yes to that.
No.
Right? And I'm not trying to poo-poo on the buyer. It's a tough sell because of the business. It's not his fault that he's making that offer. It's the business structure and how it has to be. It's a hard deal. But at the same time, like there are other people that'll make even worse offers than that. Like that's not a great offer. And he know and I'm not trying to poo-poo on the buyer. He's a great guy, and he knows what he's doing. He's owned a lot of businesses. This is just he's trying to acquire some businesses. This is just one of those ones where he's interested, but he's kind of like it's kind of a weird structure. My only feasible way of making an offer would be doing it this way. Mm-hmm. So I was like, dude, I totally get it. I 100% understand why you're doing that.
And that's why also in all of our sims it usually says this is the equity injection you need to have.
Correct. Right.
So it's out there and it's up front.
Like this
if
guy,
you think you're going to put,
if you think you're going to do seller note, then okay, fine. It needs to be at least this amount if you're going to ask him to carry the paper.
Correct.
If it's going to go through SBA, you're going to need at least 10-20%, right?
Yeah.
Or maybe 5%, depending on how you structure it. But
correct.
10%. And then so the other big key piece, other than kind of what a seller wants us to add or not add, omit or the silly things they want us to put in, like, oh, you can talk about this. No, not in the sim. I'll talk. If I get the buyer in front of you, you can talk about that. That's fine. That's fine. There's nothing. I'm not saying you can't talk about it. It's just not something you present inside of a sim. But the most important piece, other than what the owner's role is going to be the financials that you put inside of the sim, the valuation, right? How does the valuation look? Do you have all the correct numbers in place? What are the add backs? The add backs are the biggest kicker for a lot of buyers. Are they justified add backs? Are they add backs you're trying to get away with? Are you trying to sneak add backs in? Like, if you're a seller that's like, oh, I bought a boat 3 years ago and I paid $100,000 cash. Could you make an argument that, yes, that $100,000 could be added back, because you pulled it out of your business account and you bought it? Yes, but I'm going to tell you first and foremost, I'm not adding it back. That was 3 years ago. Mm-hmm. If you did it last year, I might be able to make a case, right? So Add backs are very important, and when you claim add backs, it is very important that, and I have to do this right now. I'm under a contract, and I talked to the accountant. I said, listen, I know this guy runs a ton of things through the business for personal expenses.
Yeah.
All the family has cars.
We've talked
buys a
about
lot
all
of
the crazy
stuff.
things we've seen people
And
do
I
for
said
businesses.
to the accountant, as long as you can give me receipts, bank statements, copies of checks, these things that can show that he did spend that money, or, the contract for the car that is to the kid, or, those things, I can add back. But if you can't give me receipts,
Correct.
I'm not giving you an add back. And some sellers are savvy to what add backs are, and they'll try to do that, and that's fine. I'm all for add backs, but there's a lot that you will try to tell a broker to put in, or you'll try to put inside of your financials that aren't add backs.
Yep.
I mean, hell, there's times that, and sophisticated buyers are more like this. They don't want to add back depreciation. They don't want to add back depreciation. You know what they want to add back is maintenance capital, right?
Yeah.
Like, yeah, you claimed $100,000 in depreciation, but in order to keep that equipment running, it's going to cost me $100,000 in annual maintenance. I'm not allowing you to add back that depreciation.
Yeah.
That happens.
Because that's an ongoing expense.
It's an ongoing expense that's not inside your financials.
No.
So that's why it's very important to have a broker who understands those things. And a lot of that comes from more the sophisticated buyers, the higher valued target, businesses. But those are things that will creep down into the smaller market too, especially like if you're a moving company, right? If you're a moving company and you've got 6 or 7 trucks, and those have regular maintenance. You have to replace tires. You have to do oil changes. Stuff breaks down. Gates don't open. Things that happen, right? There's annual maintenance, right? Maintenance and repairs are going to be on your profit and loss statement, your tax returns. A savvy buyer will say, okay, how much of that is regular maintenance? If it's $50,000 a year in automobile repair and maintenance, how much is that regular, right? What are the one-offs?
Yeah.
Right? And then they're going to poo-poo on your depreciation sometimes, because they're going to go, that's negated because I have to have that much going. And so then guess what happens? Your multiple doesn't go down.
No.
Cash flow goes down, which then
Correct.
means your value goes down. So there's little things like the nuanced things. It's catching the right, it's finding the right buyer, but also you're going to have, and we see it, we have a mix of sophisticated buyers, and we have the mix of the buyers that aren't as sophisticated, don't know that.
Yeah.
Right. And I'm not saying you get one buy on those people. Sometimes it's just not that important for them, because they kind of already have it in their head. I know I have to take care of trucks.
Yeah.
And it's in there, so it's fine. But there's especially contractors, right? You've got especially one-offs, right? One-offs happen, right? You have a business expense that you haven't had in 3.5 years or 4 years.
Correct.
Like bad debt, like one. Okay, that's a perfect example. I've had somebody that actually right now has, I think, like cost-wise, it's probably like $200,000 in bad debt, right? And I said to them, okay, that was last year. Yes, okay. I don't see any bad debt for 2024. I don't see any bad debt for 2023. When's the last time you brought bad debt in your financials? And the accountant goes, it's been at least 5 years. I said, okay, that's a one-off.
That's a one-off.
Like, we're not going to count that against cash flow.
No.
I'm actually going to add that back to cash flow because it's a one-time thing.
Yes.
So that's the difference between knowing what you can and knowing what you shouldn't add back. And I think sometimes sellers just don't, I don't think they understand, right? And sometimes a buyer doesn't understand.
No. And sometimes we can explain things to buyers in 10 different ways.
Yeah.
They just don't get it.
They just don't get it. And same with sellers.
Yes.
Same with sellers, right? Again, I think for our sellers, sometimes the ego is what gets in their way.
That's the biggest thing I think we deal with when it comes to sellers on a daily basis, is just maintaining egos.
Yeah. So the CIM is very important because that is what sells the business.
Yes.
That is going to be what sells the business. And if you're going to go light on the information that's provided, then expect question after question. Then expect more calls than normal.
Yeah, expect more meetings.
More meetings, right? The goal of a broker is to put as much information about that business in the CIM so that way when somebody finally does call me and says, hey, I read the CIM, I'm very interested, my ultimate goal is an offer comes. Like, if I can skip the buyer-seller meeting and go straight to getting an offer, I feel like I'm ahead of most people when it comes to being a broker. Like, as far as brokers are concerned, because a lot of brokers will, well, let's have a buyer-seller meeting. And I'm like, great, I get it, but if the CIM says enough, you might get an offer. And that's happened.
I'm one of those that I like to have the buyer and the seller at least have one meeting before an offer. And the reason I do that is because one of the things that I tell my buyers, or if I'm representing the sell side, tell my sellers is this first meeting is also to me, it's all about getting to know the opposite a little bit. It's an interview. Because, for instance, like I tell my sellers, let's say it's a specialized business. And the seller knows that they're going to have a longer transition, maybe, 6 months or something like that. I always tell my sellers, you're going to have to live with this person for 6 months.
Yeah.
Make sure it's someone that you think you can reasonably get along with for that 6 month period. Because if not, and they're really difficult to deal with and work with and so on and so forth, not only you're going to be frustrated, I'm going to be getting a phone call once a week telling me about how bad this transition's going and how difficult the buyer is and so on and so forth. Let's get that out in the open right at the beginning. Talk to them, ask them questions, ask them
personality
about who they are,
match.
Where they come from, things like that, just to get some background on that.
Yeah,
person.
my goal is to get an offer, and then usually what I'll do is I'll get if I do, like, my crowning achievement is to try to get an offer before I do the phone calls and all that stuff. But what I essentially am really working towards is that call or meeting, right? I've been lucky enough on a few of my listings where I got offers before they asked to have the phone calls. My reply back is that offer is great. I won't present this to the seller until we have a phone call or a meeting.
Yep.
Like, that's awesome. And I'll tell my seller that there's an offer, but I'm going to tell them I'm not going to show it to you yet because I want you to talk to the buyer. I need you both to talk to each other, like you had said. What's the rapport like? Are the personalities going to match, or is it going to be conflicting?
And that's a good way to do it, too.
It's an interview.
Then the money doesn't influence the seller to go, oh, well, this is a really great offer. I don't care what they're like. I just want to.
So I tell my buyer immediately, I appreciate the offer. I've got it. I will not submit this to the seller until we've gotten a phone call between the two parties. I'll tell my seller, hey, I got an offer, but I'm not going to give it to you until we have a meeting between the two parties because, and again, when I'm talking to people about signing up and doing a listing with me, I go through the whole entire process of start to finish, right? From the time that you sign this agreement to the time that we get the listing up, these are all the things that are going to happen. These are all the things I have to get done. I got to get a CIM built. I need you to answer all these questions, be as detailed as possible. But I also tell them about, okay, once we get through that, then next thing you know is going to be, we're going to have people that want to do buyer selling meetings, right? As brokers, we vet you. You got to have the ability to buy the business, whether that's liquidity, pre-approval from a bank, experience. Experience matters. Like I think that some buyers think like, well, I don't have any experience in that, but I can buy that. Cool. And yes, I'll slide you through the gate. That's fine. But I always tell my seller, like, if they don't have the experience, does that matter? I'll ask them, does it matter if I'm buying your business and I don't have experience in this exact field?
Yeah.
Because if my seller says, oh my God, you need it, then chances are the guy that doesn't have the experience is not going to get put on top of the pile.
No.
And I'm going to tell them immediately, here's the problem. I can do the meeting. That's fine. But I will tell you that I will tell the seller you don't have experience. And the seller's immediately going to either say, then I don't want to do a meeting, or it's going to be really hard to sell to somebody that doesn't know.
Yeah.
Because then now I have to think about, now I got to train this person. I might have to give them an extra transition period because of it.
And not only that, even if they get past the seller, they might not get past the bank. Because the bank is now become vendors. Well, the bank has become more restrictive
100%.
this person doesn't have experience in this. No, we're not going to lend them this money when they don't have any experience in this industry.
And
depending upon how difficult it is.
And you might think you could trick the banks. The banks know.
Oh, yeah.
The banks 100% know the legitimacy of the experience if somebody's claiming it, and or they know what at minimum the experience needs to be for somebody that's going to buy this business.
Yeah.
So if you try to play the game of, well, it's just the bank, they're lending the money. No. They have cracked down on saying yes.
Yep.
Right? They will say yes to anybody when you first start talking to them, but when you find that business,
they'll pre-qual anybody.
They will tell you this isn't the one.
Yeah.
You know, especially a good rep at the bank will tell you this isn't the one.
Mm-hmm.
You're just not. My underwriting's not going to get you through this.
And that is important too.
Yeah.
Having a good banker that
Finding the
understands.
right bank.
Hey, my underwriting's not going to approve this. This
and
is a
more
waste of
than
time.
one.
Yeah.
Don't just stick to one bank. I am so tired of talking to buyers that say, "Oh, I've got this. The bank I use is so and so." Cool. Who else have you talked to?
Yeah.
Because I'm going to tell you right now, there's a ton of banks that are picky on certain industries.
Yep.
So while your bank's like, yeah, we can do construction, their loan structure might be dog shit compared to a bank that really specializes in that field.
Yeah.
If they're a specialty field and they love that type of business and their portfolio is filled with construction businesses, then you should go to that person because you're probably going to get, I can get approved. It's not just about approval. It's about also what's the structure of that approval? Like, what's the rate? Mm-hmm. Are you getting working capital? Some banks don't give you working capital. Find a bank that gives you working capital, please. Like that, I think that's very important. We were talking about that before we started this. Mm-hmm. Like finding a bank that's going to give you working capital is a godsend.
Yeah. They really work the working capital in. They create a business line of credit for you.
Yep. You don't have to use it. You're not charged for it if you're not using it.
Correct.
It's like having a credit card that just sits in your back pocket for a rainy day if you absolutely need it.
Yeah.
Right. But finding the banks that are willing to give you a line of Huntington National does it. Mm-hmm. I think Live Oak used to. I don't know if they still do. What other banks are doing lines of credit? There's Patty Yasai. She used to.
Yeah, she's with a different bank.
Yeah,
now.
She moved to a different bank. But there's a I would say 50-50. Half of them will offer line of credit.
Yeah.
As far as working capital, and the other half won't.
Yeah.
Right. The ones that won't, their rate's probably a little better. Right. Because they're not structured on having that hey, they're going to have to dip into that fund.
Yep.
Right. But it's kind of like, okay, what matters more? Does your rate matter more? If you have to take an eighth of a point or a quarter of a point bump, but you're going to get a $200,000 line of credit for working capital.
Correct.
Maybe you take that hit on the rate just so you can have that line of credit.
Mm-hmm.
If it's a very working capital intensive business, right? If it is, then yes, I would probably go with the guys that gave me that line of credit because one, working capital is going to have to get worked out between buyer and seller. Seller's more willing to give into more of that working capital if there's a line of credit. Right? They're going to trust that, okay, cool, the bank's going to give you some money. And typically what the buyer will say is, well, I don't need all of it because I'm going to get that line of credit.
Yep.
So rather than saying, hey, your working capital is X, but I don't need that. So I'll take Y instead.
Correct.
Because I have this on the back burner if I need it.
Yep.
Right? So structuring the deal makes a difference. The CIM is very important to the banks. Mm-hmm. The banks need the CIM.
Yep.
They want to see the CIM because, and the pre-qual. I think it's just as important for a pre-qual because if I'm not just sending you financials, right? I got to send, and Melissa over at Huntington, anytime I've done it by accident because my brain's going 10 different directions. I've sent financials, no CIM, and just said, hey, this is the business. And she comes back and she goes, do you have a CIM? And I'm like, oh shit, sorry. Mm-hmm. Because she wants to know how's the business structured? What's the owner? The bank wants to know. What's the owner doing?
Is there a key employee?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
because it all matters to them and it all matters to their underwriting.
The CIM matters so much that I think sellers don't understand it.
Yeah.
Because you've seen this, and it happens to me. It happened to me on one of my current listings, and then I got a new listing, and the kid put more info in that thing that I could ever imagine somebody putting into it, and I was like, oh my God, thank you, because there's a lot of stuff in here I won't use. But it gives me a brain to fall back on. If somebody's asking me a question and I saw that in the seller questionnaire, I can repeat I can go back to that, right? Yeah. But also you've given me enough information. I can kill it with this sim.
Yeah.
And I had another listing that signed a couple months ago, and we're in the process. We're under negotiation, and it seems like everything's going fine. I sent him my questionnaire. He maybe filled out half of it, and then like the half that he filled out might have had like 2 or 3 sentences or like one line, and like, or gave me like one bit of like, hey, what's your top 5 customers? Gave me one customer, and I'm like, I had to go back to him and say, man, this matters.
Yeah.
But there's sellers that will do that, right? And oh, it's not that big a deal. Just get them in front of me. No, we don't want to do that.
No,
we don't want to do that, because if you're going to fly by the seat of your pants, that's gonna turn a buyer off immediately. Like if you're not willing to selling that, if you're not willing to fill that out, and you're just gonna, well, just get them in front of me, I'll take care of it. Like, hey, that's not how it works. They're not buying you.
No, they're buying.
They're not buying you, and they're going to figure out real quick that you're guns blazing type of person. Great, we can appreciate that, but when you leave, why do I have to worry about him trying to sell me on his business? Like, your job as a seller is to not sell the buyer on your business. Your job as a seller is to actually give the information that the buyer wants, so they can, like you said earlier, make an educated decision of if this is the business I want to purchase.
Yep.
Your interview call, your buyer-seller meeting, or whatever it is, it's an interview. It's not you trying to sell the business. You're just Vanna Whiting yourself around the business. Hey, this is my parts department, and these are my heads, my head, if the employees are there, you make up some scenario about this is an insurance adjuster or whatever. But if nobody's at the job, you just say, he handles there. This is my showroom. This is my whatever it is, and then you're just Vanna Whiting, Price is Right model, going around telling them and then answering questions, right? Keep your ego out of it.
Yep.
Let the sim do most of the talking. I think the sim doing most of the talking is very important. Yeah. Because I think sellers can hurt themselves. Because again, you're not selling, you've never sold your business, right? It's a lot of times you haven't sold a business before. And so you don't know how to act. Or how many times you've had sellers call you after a buyer seller meeting? How did I do?
All the time. Almost every buyer seller call I have 90% of the time or more the seller. Hey, how did I do? How do you think it went? But I would say over 50% of the time, I have the buyer call me as well. How do you think it went? How did I do? Did I ask the right questions? It's the same thing. They all want to know how they performed.
Yeah. Do you think that if a buyer calls you to say, how did I do, I think it's one of the best things, because that lets me know without them telling me that they really are interested in the business. Yeah. If they're concerned about how they performed on
Correct. Because they're concerned about their optics to the seller and whether the seller's going to pick me.
Yeah. Yeah. I am more happy to hear the buyer call me than I am the seller. Not that I don't want the seller to call me, because I want to give them some information or tell them, hey, you probably shouldn't have said that, or, or something like that. Like one of the things they'll say is like, oh, I can take this to Tampa. And it's like, don't. Because if you could take this to Tampa, you would have taken it to Tampa. You would have taken this to Tampa.
The worst thing, which I have run into once, is when the buyer asks you that, and then the buyer just continues to do whatever they want to do, period. Even though if you tell them, well, maybe don't bring this up. Hey, keep this in your back pocket. Don't talk about that. Kind of keep those things. And they just want to run it however they want to run it. And I've had that. It never works out well for the buyer. When we tell you things, please listen, because we're telling them in your best interest. Yeah. We're not telling them to try to pull something on you. We're telling you because this is in your best interest to ask these questions, act in this way.
Now, if the seller asks you the question on something that, we've told you, don't bring that up, but they ask you the question, answer it truthfully.
Yeah, you still have to answer it truthfully.
Be truthful, but there are some things you don't need to say, right? If you're going to plan on canning somebody because it's just a role that's not needed or whatever the case may be, don't say that to the seller, because if they have a good relationship with that person, that's going to put them off a little bit, right? Correct. Some sellers don't care. Like, you will run into sellers that will say, I don't care what they do with the business once they buy it. I'm going to get my transition and I'm gone.
I've got those kind of sellers, and I've got other sellers
that's fine.
Their number one thing after post-sale is their employees.
Oh,
is this person going to fire anybody? Is this
90.
person going to take care of my people? And I've had situations where, like you talked about, they made them feel uncomfortable about some of their current employees sticking around or things like that, and they pass on that buyer.
90% of sellers, other than cashing out at the close, 90% of the ones I've ever dealt with care about what happens to the employees.
Yes.
Almost every seller cares about what happens to the employees. And that's why, like you were saying, if your plan is to completely change everything, change the structure of how the business is operating, change the roles of these people, get rid of them, replace them, whatever it is, that's one thing you probably don't want to say right away.
No.
You don't want to say. You acquire the business, then do what that plan is, because you want to make a seller walk away or back away. Tell them you're going to do those things.
And
right?
not only that, if you're a buyer and that's what you're thinking about doing,
This,
maybe that's not the business you should be buying
yeah.
if you want to completely change it.
Yeah.
So.
Exactly. If you're going to go in and completely change everything, just go find the business where you don't have to do that.
Correct.
You're
Or
not
start
looking
your
at the
own.
right one, or start your own. Like if
Yeah.
it's the barrier to entry. I would have to spend X amount of dollars to start this type of business and go from there.
Is it more than what you would spend buying this business
Exactly.
and then completely rechanging it?
Exactly. Would you rather
Doubt it.
have? Would you rather have the annoyance, the depression, the whatever it is, to start this business up and get it running exactly the way you want it, or would you rather deal with that, buying a business and then structurally changing it all?
Yeah.
I would think there would be more stress in doing that
Yes.
than doing just starting it. Because now I have to, just starting it, I can hire the people I want. I can put the systems in place that I want. If I'm going to go buy this and change everything, now I have to deal with individuals that
And you
been
have to
there.
maintain cash flow while you're doing all of
Yes.
that to be able to make your payments on the business you just bought.
Start your own business.
Yeah,
Just
start your own business.
Start your own business. Or find the damn business that fits exactly the way you want it to fit.
Correct.
Right? It can have one or two things that you'd like to change. But if you're
That's not a
thinking
big
like,
deal.
oh, I want to change all of it, this ain't the business. And I've told people,
No.
this is not the business you need to be buying. I'll find you a different one. Don't look at this one.
Yep.
But the CIM is where a lot of what we're talking about falls inside that CIM. The CBR, we call it the Certified Business Review, right? So
Certified Business Review,
confidential business review. It's 10 different ways to say this. It's the
Yes.
same
Like
animal,
we've talked about,
but
it's the same thing.
a lot of what we're talking about, you'll find in a CIM. A good CIM will have all of this.
Yes.
It will have the good, the bad, the ugly. It'll have the roles. It'll have
And you can tell
those
a
things.
good sim from a bad sim fairly quickly.
I got an AI CIM from a broker
An AI sim.
that was created by AI.
I think a lot of that's probably gonna.
Yeah.
You're gonna see
Yeah.
a lot of.
I immediately could tell it was AI.
Yeah.
M dashes, the sentence structure was horrible. That's my kids texting me. The paragraph formation was bad. It was horrible. And it was like, you call yourself a professional? Like, I get using AI as a tool. I totally
Yes,
understand it.
we use
and
AI
I
as
use
tools.
AI as a tool. I don't use it to do my job.
No.
I use it as a tool to help enhance my job. I'm not making it do my sim. I might have it help me with writing content because I'm just not, maybe my creative juices aren't flowing and I can't think of what to write. It'll help me write some content and then I'll go in and I'll edit it the way I want it to sound. But this person literally just, it looked like they just tossed everything in the AI and said, build me a sim, shit it out, send it to me. And I was like, this is a well-known broker in our area.
Yeah.
It's a female that's won an award. You know who I'm talking about if I keep talking.
Probably.
And it was like, I turned to Jess, my wife, and I was like, come look at this. And she looked at it and she goes, this is shit. And I was like, that's ridiculous.
And I will get sims, for instance. It's like looking at a kid's picture book.
Oh my God.
Half the sim are pictures and graphs that don't mean anything, and
How about the demographics?
nobody cares about the
don't-
demographics of where your business is.
No
Nobody
buyer
cares.
gives a shit about how the population's growing.
No.
And like, you don't need to expose that. They
No.
can literally go on Google and say, hey, what's the
It has nothing
population
to
and
do with the
density
bit,
of Sarasota, Florida? How's that looking as far as growth? Is it a good bet? Can I invest in that in a business in that area, would that work? You know, you can Google that. You don't have
Correct.
to tell anybody. The sim is about the business.
Yes.
It is not about where the fuck the business is located and how amazing the traffic is
No.
and the population and the family growth. Like, no one cares.
No.
But time and time again, it's in Sims.
Yes.
And you're wasting 5 pages.
Yes.
It's like, you've wasted my time.
And by the way, also, you don't need a 20-page sim
No.
on a $500,000 business.
No. 10 pages at the most.
At the very most.
You probably can get away easily with 5 or 6.
Yeah. I keep mine as short as possible and
As
try to
much as
condense
possible.
the information
Exactly.
as much as possible without making it too difficult to discern.
Yeah, Sims are funny to see when they're not yours.
Yeah.
Not that I write a perfect sim. I'm not
No.
saying I write perfect sim, and there will
I
be
don't
things
either.
that like I will not get in there that somebody will ask, and I'll go, crap, I didn't put that in the sim, and
Yep.
but I'll go edit the sim and put it in there, or I'll be like, oh, my bad, but hopefully I know the answer and I'll be able to answer that. But there are sims out there that just have information that means absolutely nothing
Yeah.
to a buyer. Demographics mean nothing to a buyer.
No.
They mean nothing to a buyer because if they cared about that, they'd have already looked that up. And chances are when they're buying into a market that is under $1 million, they probably already live in the area. So they
Yep.
already know the area. Or they're moving to the area so they know the area because
Correct.
they probably have family and they come down here a bunch of times, or they just looked already. So why stick in 4 or 5 pages about, school choices? And like, I've seen all that. I'm
Yeah.
like, are you kidding me?
I know.
No one cares about what schools are like the better schools.
You're not selling a house.
right.
You're selling a business.
You're selling a business, man.
And I think that's why we get some of that in Sims in our industry, because for instance, in Florida, you have to have a real estate license to be a business broker. We have real estate agents that sometimes like to sell businesses, but their Sims look like
They're selling a house.
memorandum. Yes. They're the ones that put in the demographics and the schools around the businesses.
No one cares.
Nobody cares. It's not a house they're
Nobody
buying.
cares. Nobody
So-
cares. It's easy to Google it. You don't
Yeah.
have to put it in a sim.
Well, and like you said, they've already made the decision to come to that area.
Yes.
So
Right.
you're not selling
Yeah.
them on the area, you're selling them on the
They
business.
didn't click on the lead. They didn't click on the listing
Correct.
because they cared anything about where it's located. Like where it's located, that will matter to some, but like what the schools are like, what the neighborhoods are like, what the population growth. They're not clicking on the listing because
No.
of any of that information, because guess what? You're not sticking that in your listing.
No.
So if you're not sticking in your listing, why would you ever put that in your sim?
Correct.
That's just silly to me.
Yeah. It's fluff.
It's all fluff.
There's a lot of fluff. to
It's
people.
trying to make what's like putting whipped cream on shit, right? Like you're trying to make a big book because you think a bigger sim matters.
Correct. You think the bigger or the longer the sim,
Yeah,
the
it
better
doesn't.
it's going to look. No.
No, a good broker is going to be able to condense it into as minimal amount of pages as possible. If I can keep a sim on a bigger business, if it's a business that's valued at 2 million or higher, my goal is 10 pages. I don't always hit it, but my goal is 10 pages. If it's under $1 million, 5 pages. I try to do 5 pages or less if I can. Like, it also depends on how much information you're providing me. If you're
Correct.
giving me a lot that I can put in, yeah, then I will build the extra pages because that just really helps me get the information to you. But I don't.
Yeah. Sims I try to keep how I do it. Sims I try to keep as short as possible, because Sims are usually something that someone wants to browse through at the very beginning of looking at a business. They want to pull out the pertinent information that's in that Sim. And then, frankly, they're going to move directly onto financials.
Correct.
And they're going to now. That's where I try to be as detailed as possible.
Yep.
Is the financials,
The
because that's where they're going to dig in.
valuation in the sim makes a difference. What I started doing, and I don't know if you started doing this, is I pulled the valuation out of my sim, my CBRs, and now it's a separate document that they can pull. Because
My Sims usually have the general last 3 years
Yes.
of numbers, but then when you want to get anything more detailed,
The
than that,
valuation
you go
is
into
available.
my financial valuation
then the
and
financials and
the financial analytics on the business.
yeah, that's very important, is to find a broker that is understanding of exactly what it takes, what buyers are looking for, and what buyers want to see. What they want to see is as much information about the business as you can provide. They want to see how's the business performed in the previous 3 years and how's it doing this year. They also want to see the valuation. Where did you determine the number? Where did that come from? And then also, like you said, an analysis of the business to show why it supports the value.
Correct. And not only that, I always included DCSR.
Oh,
This
yeah.
is
I started sticking those in
financeable
there.
business
Yes.
at almost any
Yeah.
bank. Here's why.
Yep. And then also, if I know that it's clearing my DSCR, then guess what I'm doing? I'm getting prequels off of it.
Yep.
And I'm sticking it in either my CIM or I'm making it available in that data room so they know this is pre-qualified. Or what I'll do is I'll take that pre-qualification, condense it to take a screenshot of
Yep.
the most important part of that, because I don't need the header, I don't need all that stuff, and just say in the CIM, Huntington Bank, here's their loan offer,
First National Bank, here's their loan offer.
More details provided upon request, and then I can send you the prequal if you wanted to, or you can just download it in the data room. You can have the whole 4 pages of the prequal, or however many pages they put in there. But it's very important to have the right information in the listing. And I think the CIM is it is like the Bible when it comes to selling that business.
Yes.
It really is. It's the dictionary for everything. Gives you every definition, tells you how everything works. It's very important. So, if you're talking to a broker that doesn't preach about how important the CIM is, ask them questions about the CIM. How's your CIM? Can I see an example of your CIM? If you look at it and there's just not a lot of information that describes the business they're trying to get people to buy, that could be a good indicator of whether or not that's the broker that you should choose. Right?
Yes.
I mean, I don't like to talk about myself when it comes to my accomplishments, and I think a lot of people don't want to hear that, right? They don't want to be sold to.
Correct.
Nobody wants to be sold to. But, it does matter to ask certain questions. Have you won awards? What's your success rate? Things like that. Ask questions like that. I have no problem sharing it with you. I'm not going to advertise it.
Have you sold a business like mine before?
Yeah. Have you sold a business like mine? Have you sold a business of this size? If you're a bigger business, have you sold a business of this size? What does your firm specialize in? What's your specialty market? Because brokers, I like to say I can sell anything, and I can, and I have, but there are certain sectors that I think I know more about just because of my desire to know more about those sectors, because I like those businesses or those types of businesses. So ask what your specialty is. What industries do you specialize in? If they say everything, cool. Have you sold a business like this before? Right? I don't have a problem with somebody saying, "Hey, I've sold it all." That's great. That means you're able to manage and you're able to kind of pivot. That's awesome. I like the fact that you can say that. But have you sold in this sector? Have you ever sold this business?
Yes.
So very important. We're 7 minutes over an hour.
Okay.
We were trying to keep it 30 minutes? That's never going to happen.
That's never going to happen.
Not with a CIM. I mean, it's just not going to happen. But yeah, I mean, if you guys that are watching or listening, and you have any other questions, you want to talk about a particular segment of selling a business.
Yep.
I don't. You've got your CIM. What else have we talked about? We've talked about valuations. We've talked about what was it?
We've talked about valuations. We've talked about due diligence.
Due diligence. We haven't really. Went into a lot of detail on due diligence.
Yes.
As far as valuations, we didn't go to a super amount of valuations in any of the episodes. This one we kind of covered it a little bit. The add backs are very important, but what else?
I mean, there's a plethora of things we
Finding
can
the
talk
right
about.
bank
Finding the right bank.
as a buyer.
Your SBA loan process, what that's going to look like, because that can be really smooth or that can be a nightmare.
Regardless, it's time consuming.
Yes, it is. And the bank's going to control your timing.
Yes.
They're always in control of the clock.
You
if
can't
you've got a
rush
bank
it.
Involved. You can't rush it. You can't make them close earlier
Can't
than
get
they
mad.
want to.
Please don't get emotional about it.
No.
It's like they have their own clock, and unless they're not going to adhere to you saying, "Oh, well, if this doesn't get closed by X, I'm not selling the business."
Correct.
That's not how it works.
No.
That's not how it works. The bank is going to tell you, "I don't give a shit."
Yeah.
You
And
got to
they've
wait.
got things that they have to check off.
Yep.
They have things that have to be done before they can do
Yeah,
anything.
especially if it's SBA, because they have to make sure they check every SBA guideline the government gives.
Correct.
Like they have to have that in the portfolio, otherwise they can't close.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, what other topics? If there's anything.
Well, another thing I was saying, if you guys, we talked about it earlier, if you guys would like us to do a live session where you can ask questions while we're live, I think that would be really useful as well.
I think what I'm going to try to do is just go live, and then what we
Yep.
can do is transition that into the podcast, right?
Yeah.
Like just do a live, record it, and then dump it into the podcast. And then that way we'll see if we can get some engagement. We can see if we can get buyers or sellers to ask questions.
Yeah, because we want you guys
Yeah.
out there to ask us questions, because if you don't, we don't know exactly what you need.
Yeah, we can talk about what we go through.
Yeah, we can talk about the general things and what you need to know generally, but specifics or things that we haven't touched on or talked about, send us the questions. Let us know so we can help you guys out.
Yeah, it's important. I mean, that's the whole reason why we did this podcast is
Yeah.
to really try to give as much information to Joe Schmoes out there that are buying or selling business, or Lisa Schmo, if you want to.
Well, and just the simple fact of there's some of you out there I know that don't think your business is worth anything, and it really is worth money. And don't think about closing it down.
If you feel as if your business is worth nothing and you're thinking about closing it down, call a broker first.
Yes.
Call a broker first. You might be right, but you'd be amazed at how many times somebody goes, wait, I can get that much?
Yeah. Who wouldn't
Yes.
like another $500,000 in their retirement account?
Yeah. You were going to close because you just, what?
Yeah.
Because just things weren't going right? Okay, fine, I get it. But, they're not going right for you. That's an opportunity for a buyer. Oh, they're not doing the right things. They admit it. Well, hell, if I do the right things, I could double this business or triple this business. Like, it's going to build value for somebody. And that's when we come and say, yeah, no, somebody will buy this and they would pay you this for it.
Yep.
So any questions, please let us know. Any suggestions, any critiques.
Yep.
Like, Greg, stop scratching the table as we're talking. I'm just
I
messing with
understand
you.
that. I get fidgety
I
sometimes.
do too.
It happens.
I
It's
do
hard
too.
for me to.
I don't know what to do.
Jason and I are energy people, so it's hard
know
for
what
me
to
to
do
kind of
with my
sit in
hands.
one. Yes.
Like, that's how it feels. Like, the whole time I'm sitting there like this, I'm like this. I'm like, I don't know.
Correct. And I've
I
been
don't
trying
want to touch the
work on
table
that.
too much, but I don't know where these go sometimes. So, but yeah, like, subscribe, please. Support the channel, and the podcast. It gets us exposure. More exposure helps us with growing, but also helps us be able to answer the questions to the public, to the people.
And
that
as we
wanna
grow,
know.
we can reach more people and help more people.
Yeah.
Which, like Jason said,
Yeah.
that's the whole reason we're doing this, is to help you all and inform you all more.
And also, we got tired of bad advice
Yes.
on other
People giving-
channels.
yeah.
Horrible advice on other channels.
Yes. There are some that are just.
Atrocious. Like, you can buy a business doing this. No, you can't. You can buy a distressed business doing that,
Or
but then you're
just-
not making any money.
Yeah. There's one that actually is very good, but there are a lot that are bad. And there was one dude that I watched. Holy crap. It was like watching a reality show. It was awful.
And you might think we're bad. That's fine. Let us know.
That's fine.
That's
but
fine. Let us know. How can we do better?
We may be boring or whatever, but
Yeah.
this
How
one
can
dude,
we improve?
stay away from him.
We're not going to
Stay
say his
away.
name, but
No, not going to say his name, but
if you
would
started
stay away from
looking
that
at
person.
businesses and started searching social media for people that talk about it, you probably ran into him
yeah.
because he's there.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, he's out there on social media, so
give us a like, give us a follow, whatever it is. Subscribe to the channel if you can. It's no money to subscribe because we're
Yeah.
not big enough.
No.
So we don't have to worry about that. So
and I don't think we'll ever get,
we'll try
charged
to go
for it.
We'll try to go live as more often so we can do that. Maybe even do a TikTok where we can do live TikToks.
Yeah.
That's a big platform, so helps. But yep, Jason, Greg at the Ad Backs. We'll see you next time.
Sounds good.